All right. So, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Aquarium's Online Academy. My name is Talia. I'm from our education department, and I'm so excited I get to spend a little bit of our morning together. So, today's a really exciting day. It's one of our Draw with Us classes, so I'm excited to do some drawing today. And today, we are going to be drawing one of my favorite habitats to explore. We're going to be drawing some of our friends from a tide pool today. So I'm going to give you guys a moment to get some supplies together. While we're doing that, let's make some observations of kind of a little bit about what's going behind me. We'll do some practice with our observation skills here, kind of see what's going on in our kind of kelp forest habitat here. And while we're doing that, also, I'm going to encourage you guys during our program today to ask questions. If you have any questions, if there's something you're wondering about, you are welcome to text in those questions live to this number right down there below. There on your screen, 562-286-1838. You're welcome to text your questions in. If you're not watching this live, or if you think of a question later, you can still ask those questions. We just ask that you email us instead, and that email address is right down there below. It's live@lbaop.org. So those are two ways to interact with us, depending on when you're viewing. So I'm going to give you one more moment to get some drawing supplies together. We'll start making some observations about what's going on with this kelp forest behind me just to get some practice here. I notice there's some kelp swaying in the water. I notice there's some big rocks. We're definitely going to draw some rocks today. Ooh, there's a shark. Do you see the shark swimming by? There's one of our leopard sharks. And there's definitely different types of fish as well, and some of them are actually being really good about standing still. I noticed a fish back over here is really good about staying still as they're kind of going with the flow of the kelp, which I think is pretty cool. All right, my friends. So before we start drawing a tide pool, I think it might be a good idea to think about what is a tide pool. Because we should probably know that before we start drawing it. We'll kind of figure it out as we go too. But a tide pool is a really cool habitat. It's kind of where the ocean and the land kind of meet together. And as the water is kind of going in and out, it kind of leaves behind these little pools of water. And sometimes they're really small pools. They can be like a teacup size. Sometimes they're like swimming pool size. They can be really big pools of water. And then you have all sorts of animals that live in the pools of water. You can see there's even some friends that live up on the rocks too. It looks like there's some mussels that are hanging out on these rocks. And it makes this really unique home for a lot of different animals. So that's kind of the habitat and the animals within that we are going to be exploring today. So that's a little bit about what a tide pool is. So hope you guys got some drawing supplies ready to go. And you can use whatever you have at home. If you got a piece of paper, if you got some scratch paper, and you can use whatever method you want to draw that works best for you. If you got a pencil, awesome. If you got crayons, markers, you use whatever works best for you, whatever you have around at home. So let's start off with drawing a tide pool. So I'm going to go over to my document camera over here. I'm going to start, I think, drawing my tide pool first. I'm going to be using marker today. But again, you can use whatever you have at home. So I think I'm going to draw the pool of my tide pool first. I'm going to draw a big pool because I want to make sure that I have some room for some animal friends to go along with it. So I'm going to draw, I think, a big rock here. And then I'm going to kind of make a pool. And then I think maybe I'll draw another big rock over here. This is going to be the start of my tide pool. Maybe I'll shade in some of these parts so you know that it's a rock. But I'll leave some space to draw some animal friends too. All right. So I got some big rocks. I need some water, I think, as well for the top of my tide pool. So I'm going to draw some water up here. All right, so I think I have a pretty good start to to my tide pool, kind of shade a little bit more some of my spaces for my rocks. Okay, I think my tide pool needs some animal friends. So let's see, what do I want to add kind of here in my tide pool? Let's see, I think I'm going to start with one of my favorite animals. Ooh, I see I have some questions coming in, so I'll get to that as well. I think I'm going to start drawing maybe some anemones first. So we'll get a picture up of an anemone so you can kind of see what that looks like. And I see we have some questions coming in, so I'll let you get some inspiration from our anemone here. I think anemones kind of look a little bit like a flower, and then they have this fun little bit in the middle, which I always think looks like a belly button, but it's not a belly button. It's actually where their mouth is. So that's what this little hole is right in the middle. So Miss Amadora's class is joining us this morning. Good morning, Miss Amadora's class. And they're asking if tide pool habitats are endangered. That's a great question. I'm not sure if any are really designated as endangered. I will say they do face some challenges because they're kind of right where the ocean and the land meets together. Sometimes you might have the coastline, the kind of area where they're sitting. Sometimes that might get changed depending on what's going on with the waves, what's going on with the rocks. Maybe somebody might, maybe they might building something on the coastline, and that might change the way that the water or the sand or whatnot interact. So that might be a way that tide pool habitats might have some challenges facing them or some changes over time, but I'm not quite sure if any are designated as endangered. That's a great question. That'll be my homework, I think, after I draw with me. I'll go double check that. Ooh, and then Eugene is asking, what are the predators of tide pools, or what are some predators in tide pools? Ooh, that's a good question. So, a predator is something that eats something else, right? So something like an anemone could be a predator of, say, a little fish or a shrimp or a crab. So those are some examples of animals that might be predators to other animals in a tide pool. You might also have all sorts of friends that you might think a little bit more on land, kind of hanging out in a tide pool too. Sometimes you'll definitely have gulls that come by. They'll try to pick up something. Maybe they'll pick up a crab or a clam. They'll try to drop it on a rock to break it open. So there's lots of different animals that might visit a tide pool that might be considered a predator as well. That's a great question, Eugene. Okay, so I'm going to go make some observations about my anemone friend so I can do some good doodles in our tide pool. So I noticed that we kind of have a circle shape here. Let's see if I can draw a circle backwards. There we go. Have a circle shape. We got a circle mouth. We got all these kind of triangle-y tentacles here. They almost looks like a sunflower, like a lion's mane. And then you have this little thing on the bottom. So this is kind of the rest of their body here. There's a little red bit in this picture. And they kind of have a little stalk, a little bit like a rectangle. And then they have a little foot on the bottom. They have one huge suction cup that goes boop. Ah, Miss Carrie gave me an excellent prop here. So this is our little prop anemone here. But if you look on the bottom, there's this giant suction cup here. And then that's how they stick on to the bottom. And then if a wave comes by, they don't get knocked off. They say, I'm standing still. And they'll go back and forth. I realize this is an interesting thing to have in front of a green screen too. But that's okay. But yeah, on the bottom, it's pretty cool. And it has this big old suction cup. So that's something to think about with our anemones. Okay, so let's do some drawing of anemones in our tide pool. I'm going to draw them kind of in the pool of the tide pool because they like to be in the water. I'll kind of see if I can scooch mine up a little bit so you can see the bottom a bit more. I have a little bit of a delay here. Okay, so I'm going to draw some anemones. I'm going to draw some anemones in this corner, I think. So I'm going to draw their little stalk. Make sure it connects to the ground there. And then I'm going to draw a big circle. for the rest of them. I'll draw their little belly button mouth there. And then I'll draw lots of triangles to be those tentacles all around. The edge there. I'll draw another one. I'll make a friend for it too. Draw another anemone. So some anemones that you find in tide pools that are kind of these big ones like this. There's also some really cool little teeny tiny anemones called aggregating anemones. And they live kind of in a clump. They kind of look like little circles. Sometimes you actually find them a little bit higher. So I might draw some over here. But what's cool about them is they try to hide by pulling shells and bits of rock on. Ooh, and Miss Carrie says she has a picture of it. So let's go see. So those are my little aggregating anemones over here. Oh, they're so teeny tiny. So these are some of our aggregating anemones. Kind of, you can see they all sort of clump together right over here. And they pull all these little white little bits here. You can see they're pulling little bits of rock and shell over their body to kind of be like, you can't see me. I'm going to hide. So they're a super cool little anemone friend. Now I notice in this picture, there are some other friends who live in the tide pool as well. What are these? Their shape looks really familiar. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 arms. What's a 5-sided shape? Oh, ooh. So that's a star. And it lives in the ocean. So that's a sea star. I think we should add some sea stars to our tide pool as well. Maybe we can throw up a close-up picture of a tide or of a star. Ooh, that works too. Perfect. We can look at our anemone friends. By the way, I don't think I quite explained how their tentacles work here. So they're actually related to things like sea jellies or jellyfish. So they can actually sting their food. Eugene was asking about tide pool predators. They can sting their food with their tentacles, and then they're going to bring it into the middle where their belly button mouth is. So they'll kind of fold up into themselves, and that's how they'll eat their food, which is pretty cool. So you might, if you've ever touched an anemone at a tide pool, they kind of feel a little sticky, and that's because our skin is too thick to feel the sting from their tentacles here. So, oh, I got a little fish here too. We might draw some fish in our tide pool too. That's a little painted green thing saying good morning. So there are definitely some different types of sea stars here. There's some ochre stars here with all these white little polka dots. There's a leather star kind of chilling in the back there. It looks like he's kind of lounging. And let's see if I can find any other. I think we got mostly ochre stars. Ooh, and you can see the foot of the anemone here too. Cool. Ooh, and you can actually even see the underside of the sea star here. So they actually stick on with little sticky feet, but it's not a big suction cup like our anemone friend. They have lots of little teeny tiny sticky feet, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. Ooh, we have Ms. Anderson's class is asking what colors are anemones. Ooh, they can be so many different colors. So there are green anemones. These ones are kind of red and white. This one's kind of pink. I've seen just plain white ones before that look like they look like cotton balls almost. There are all sorts of different colors. There's ones with stripes. There's ones with, I don't know if you can see it in here. There's some with like polka dots on them. There's all sorts of different colors for anemone. So probably almost any color in the rainbow, you could probably find an anemone that's that color. Ooh, and Miss Anna is asking, do anemones have eyes? Ooh, that is an excellent question. So they don't have eyes like we have eyes. They don't have like, I don't see really an eyeball sitting there or a nose or anything like that. They have, I think, little sensors though. So they have little spots probably around the edge of their body. I would think that sense kind of the difference between light and shadow. So it's kind of seeing, but it's not seeing as precisely as we can see. Ooh, great questions coming in. What Mrs. Wright's class is asking, what are the white parts on the anemones? So let's see. If you're referring to this picture, these are their tentacles. So that's how the things that are waving in the water, and that is how they are able to catch their food. So think of it kind of like their arms. So they're like, ooh, I got some lunch. I'm going to bring it into my mouth. Nom nom. Ooh, there's their little belly button mouth right there. That's how they're going to eat their food. And they're also asking, do they have babies, and how do they have babies? Great question. So they reproduce by spawning. So that means everything's kind of going into the water. It's combining there. It's making almost like a little egg or a little plankton that's going to go hang out in the water for a little bit, and then it's going to settle and eventually turn into an anemone. So that's how anemones have babies. Great questions. Sea stars actually do a very similar thing. So everything goes into the water, it combines there, makes a little egg, swims around, says, I'm tired of swimming. They're going to settle down, and eventually that will start changing its form into something that looks a little bit more like a sea star or an anemone. So they're pretty cool. All right, let's draw some sea stars, I think, in our tide pool. I think I will, let's see, I need some friends on the other side of my tide pool. So I'm going to draw some stars, I think, on these rocks over here. And you can draw stars a couple different ways. You can draw them sort of by joining a bunch of triangles together. Like this. So I'm going to draw a skinny triangle. And then I'm going to go draw a skinny triangle out. And another skinny triangle out. And then I'm going to make two skinny triangles on the bottom here. There we go. I might add some polka dots on mine to make it like our ochre stars. They have little white dots on the top. That's kind of part of their body. Maybe I'll even show some little tube feet sticking out the bottom here. You can also draw stars like you might do in school, kind of by drawing lines. So I'll draw another one like that. So I'll draw a line. Can you see me? You can see me. Going up, going back across, going down. Kind of made almost like a little chair. I'm going to go up, make that point on the top, and come down, connect my other point, and then you can kind of fill that in. So that's another way to draw a star. All right. Let's see, I'll draw maybe one more star up here. I'll draw a little bitty one. Okay, so I've got some stars hanging out in my tide pool. All right, and Miss Amador's class is wondering about our anemones. They're wondering, what do anemones eat? So anemones kind of eat whatever comes by them. And they'll eat things like crabs. They'll eat maybe a little fish that comes by. Oh, how they're able to eat. Right. Thank you. Miss Cynthia's correcting me on my reading skills today. So yeah, so they're going to use their tentacles to eat. The tentacle is going to sting their food and kind of catch onto it. And when they're stinging them, they're kind of like shooting almost like a little harpoon, little like needles in. So that's going to help grab onto their food. And then they're going to use those tentacles to bring it into the mouth, which in their middle. So you can see this one kind of looks all lumpy, kind of looks like a donut. That's one that's all closed up. So it's said, I've got my food. I'm going to bring it all the way to my mouth. And that's going to go directly it's going to put it in their mouth. That's going to go directly into their stomach. They're going to eat up all that yummy food. And then they're going to poop it out. So, yeah, that's how they eat, is using their tentacles to their mouth. And then they'll kind of close up, say, nom nom, I'm eating breakfast. And then when they're open, they'll open back up when they're done. So, yeah, that's a little bit more about how anemones eat. All right, let's see. We've drawn some anemones. We've drawn some stars in our tide pools. We did see a fish in one of our earlier pictures. I'm going to draw some little fish. I'm going to draw some pretty kind of basic fish. I don't think I'm going to try to draw a painted greenling today. But if you want to be adventurous, you can make very fancy fish in your tide pool. I'm going to draw, I think, just some little fishies in my tide pool. I'm going to go get my sleeve up so I don't drag it across my picture. So I'm going to kind of draw a shape that almost looks kind of like a teardrop. And then I'm going to add a triangle to that. So that's my fish body. I'll draw a little eye. Make it a smiley fish. I'll draw a little fin. Maybe a fin up top. So I'll draw a fish. I'll make it a friend. So again, kind of making a teardrop shape. Adding a triangle to it. Adding an eye. I'll make a little gill for this one. Okay, so I've added some fish to my tide pool. And I did notice that there were some spiky friends in our earlier picture too, so I might draw that, I think, next in our tide pool. So, Nayla was asking about some sea stars, and they were asking, do sea stars lay eggs? So, it's not like they're laying an egg like a chicken lays an egg, but the girl sea stars are going to produce eggs. The boy sea stars are going to produce sperm that's going to combine in the water, and then that's going to eventually turn into a baby sea star. So not eggs like a chicken egg, but the girls do produce what we call eggs. Ooh, Hannah's asking about how sea stars walk. Let's go to that. That's a great question because I think we have some good pictures or some good videos to show. Yeah, let's do that. So we noticed on that earlier video, we saw the underside. We saw there's little things on the bottom of the sea star. So that is the sea star's feet. And they're called tube feet, so T-U-B-E. So every little foot is kind of like a little straw with a little suction cup, little teeny tiny suction cup attached to that. And they will use these to move around. So if they wanted to crawl, I'm going to get good at my backwards pointing one of these days, that way, they would have to put one in front of the other, 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 and they kind of drag themselves across. So if I was going to be Talia Sea Star and I was stuck to the wall, I have to be reaching with my 2 feet and then dragging myself the rest of the way, and then reaching with my 2 feet and dragging myself the rest of the way. If you want to practice being sea stars, I hope you guys were excellent sea stars. So that's a little bit about how sea stars walk. And then Valencia was wondering about how crabs have babies. Ooh, that's a great question too. They, I think, have more, if they're anything like lobsters have more traditional eggs, and the mom kind of holds on to the eggs for a little bit, and then eventually those become baby lobsters. So I think crabs are pretty similar. I don't know if mama is going to hold on to the eggs. A lot of times yes, spider crabs do that. They have a special little part on their body that kind of holds on to the eggs outside the body. They're kind of like, just like almost like a little cup. And then hold on to the eggs as the eggs are developing. So yeah, crabs have a little bit more traditional eggs than what we think about. Cool. Okay, so excellent questions, my friend. Thank you so much for all your questions. Ooh, Miss Garcia's class is wondering, why do sea stars have different colors? That's a great question. So some of these are different types of sea stars. So this is an ochre star over here. This is a bat, B-A-T star over here. These are giant spine sea stars over here. So sometimes different types of sea stars are going to have different colors. Some of that is just genetics. It's like people have different eye colors and hair colors, but they're still all people. Some of it's that. Sometimes I think it might be depending on sort of what they eat as well. So these ochre stars come in lots of different colors, and we only find certain colors in certain regions of the world. So they think maybe it might be a mix of kind of just the way that they are versus what they eat. So there's a couple different reasons why sea stars might have different colors. And Andrew is wondering, how and what do sea stars eat? Ooh, Andrew, that is a fantastic question. So they are also going to use their 2 feet a little bit to help them eat. They love to eat things that live in 2 shells, like mussels and clams. You can actually see some clams over here that I think they already ate for breakfast. So what they're going to do is they're going to use their sticky 2 feet to give a clam a giant hug like this. And then they're going to use that 2 feet to open up the shell of the clam, because they want to get to the meat inside. If you guys have ever had clam chowder, they want to get to the meat that's inside the clam. And then they are going to do something really weird, and they actually take their stomach out of their body to eat. Can you do that? I don't think so. That probably isn't a good idea. But sea stars take their stomach out of their body, they stuff it into the clam and flip it inside out, and then they make basically clam soup, and then they go, delicious clam soup, and then they're going to go gulp and swallow their stomach back into their body. It's weird, but it's kind of awesome. Do we have a picture of the underside where the stomach is? We'll see if we can throw that up, Andrew, so you can see a little bit about what that looks like. But yeah, it's really interesting, but really weird. But yeah, it would be like if you, here it is. So that's kind of what it looks like. This is, I think, a little piece of fish or mussel or something that this sea star is enjoying on one of her windows. So this is how we got this excellent view of what their tummy outside of their body was. But can you imagine, like, you sat down for dinner and your mom's like, here's your dinner, and you're like, thanks, Mom. You went your stomach onto the dinner plate and then swallowed your stomach back. I don't know if that would be polite dinner table manners at my house, so I'm glad maybe that we're not sea stars, but they eat in a very interesting fashion. So yeah, thank you, Andrew, for asking that fantastic question. They're super cool. By the way, if you're wondering where Seastar Eyes are, they have similar idea than the anemones. They have just little eye spots, and they have one on each end of their arm. So they have 5 little eye spots so they can see around them, which is pretty cool. Since we were talking about clams, I think I want to draw a cousin of our clams on our tide pools, because one of my favorite things to see at tide pools is an animal called a mussel. Not mussels like mussels, but it's spelled a little bit differently. So we're going to draw, I think, some mussels next. Carrie's going to get us a picture up so we can kind of see what the shape looks like. I think I'm going to draw them. Ooh, those are cool. So they kind of look a little like big ovals or big sort of teardrop shapes. These are some mussels, and then there's some, I think, some barnacles hanging out, some acorn barnacles hanging out down there too. They're another one of my favorites as well. So let's go draw some of those in our tide pool. So I'll leave that picture up. Oh, that's okay. We'll go draw some mussels up here. So I'm going to draw kind of some big ovally kind of teardrop shapes here. And I'm going to keep them pretty close together because mussels definitely like the clump together. And they have really special sticky thread. That's definitely one of the things that I'm going to kind of fill it in with some more little half circles here. They have some really special sticky thread that helps them stick onto rocks. It's called byssal thread. So that's how they and their neighbors kind of all stick together. So that's definitely one of the challenges that tide pool animals face, is they have waves coming in and out. So they have different ways to help them kind of stay together. So mussels use their sticky thread. We talked about the anemones having big sticky feet to help them out. Our stars, which are hiding in the corner there, they have their tube feet to stick on. So there's lots of different ways for different animals to stick on. I'm going to draw some barnacles too. Barnacles kind of look, let's see, make sure you can see what I'm drawing. They kind of look like little volcanoes, and then they have little feet that stick out. They eat with their feet. They're kind of funny. So when they're a baby and they're saying, I'm tired of swimming and I want to settle down, how they settle down is they make glue. Ooh, these are fantastic pictures of barnacles. They make glue on their head, and they stand on their head, and they stick themselves down to the rock, so they are upside down. They make a beautiful barnacle shell, and then since they're upside down, they have to eat with their feet. So they stick their feet out, and they comb the water, and they get teeny tiny little animals that live in the water. And then they bring it inside, and they eat it, which is pretty cool. I don't know if you can see any of their teeny tiny feet. This looks like it's definitely a picture that's out of the water. So they're all probably closed up trying to stay nice and wet inside their shell. But yeah, these are definitely one of my favorites to see if they're live in an aquarium or out in a tide pool, definitely to see them eat. You'll see looks like little eyelashes that come out, go food, and then they go back down. They're really, really cool. All right, so we've definitely drawn a couple of different tide pool friends. I think I want to try to draw, actually, nope, you know what? We are out of time. So I encourage you to keep filling your tide pool. I had so much fun drawing with you about tide pools that I lost track of time. Oh my goodness. I hope you had fun drawing some tide pool friends with you. You can see that there are many more animals to fill up your tide pool. So I encourage you guys to keep drawing some animal friends. Maybe you might draw some more fish. Maybe you might draw a crab or an octopus. There's definitely lots of different animals to explore in the tide pools. But thank you so much for joining us this morning. Again, if you have any remaining questions, you're welcome to email us. Instead, the email address is right down there below on your screen. live@lbaop. I did also notice that we had lots of teachers watching with us this morning. If you can do us a favor, if you can text us in the number of students that are watching with you, we sure would appreciate that. That helps us get a better gauge on our numbers and help us better serve our communities as well. So teachers, if you don't mind texting in the number of students that are watching with you, that'll help us out. And again, that number is right down there below. It's 562-286-1838. All right, my friends. So thank you so much for joining us this morning, and have a great rest of your morning. We have another class coming up at 10 o'clock, so you're welcome to stick around for that. And I'll see you later. Bye, everybody.